On My Way to Paradise by Dave Wolverton, also known as Dave Farland. Not a very well-known book, and one that I picked up from Book Off for $1. The book was written in 1989. It doesn't feel that dated, and it is a strange mix of a lot of different subgenres of sci-fi. It actually reminds me a lot of Dan Simmons. Hyperion is a mishmash of a lot of different stuff, and this has the same feel. This feels a lot heavier than Hyperion. Despite the goofy cover, this is a brutally violent book. I think the best way to describe it is as a hyper-violent version of Halo. The basic plot synopsis is it starts off in this sort of noir plot where there's a guy living in Panama who is working as, I don't remember the name of it, it's not a doctor, it's this guy who does these boutique surgeries and genetic enhancements to de-age people and to give them like special abilities or to regenerate limbs. And he works in kind of an impoverished village, and this femme fatale, mysterious woman shows up on a transport ship begging him for help and begging him to be hidden and protected, and pays him with this very expensive crystal that is full of sensitive intel. She's on the run from the government, and there's all of this plotting and stage setting early on in the book, and then it does like a hard 90-degree pivot into a totally different plot. So I can't say anything interesting about this book going forwards without spoiling the first like quarter of the book a little bit. The main character ends up murdering an agent, an assassin that's trying to kill him, and flees off-world with the femme fatale woman, and winds up enlisting out of desperation on this expedition to a distant planet called Baker, where a Japanese corporation is at war with Japanese nationalists for control of the planet. And on the voyage there, the main character and the other characters in the book that he meets engage in this ongoing virtual like VR training program where they're trained by samurai, space samurai, in the ways of combat. So they put them in basically Master Chief suits, put them in battle armor. So they stick these jacks, Matrix style, into the backs of their skulls, and they have this fully immersive experience where they're on big hovercraft in these recreated environments based on Baker, the planet that they're going to. And they have to do battle with samurai that are also jacked in a different part of the ship who are playing the Japanese nationalist enemies. So they're run through these training sessions over and over and over again with full sensory input. So every time they die, they experience all the pain and suffering of dying. And then there's all this conflict on the ship itself. And then eventually they make it to Baker, and the plot explodes into this totally other plot. At its heart, it's just action sci-fi. It's a great, fun, super violent military sci-fi adventure story that has pretensions of being this book of ideas where there are themes at play, and I hate themes. I hate it when an author is playing with his theme cards face up on the table, his or her, and the plot is just so disjointed. It's so all over the place. This book continuously reminded me of Armor by John Stakely, which is another kind of not that well-known military sci-fi book. Armor is more uneven, if you can even call it uneven. It's completely top-heavy. The first 90 pages or so are incredible, like the best military sci-fi I've ever read. Super exciting to read, super engrossing, and then the rest of it just blows. The rest of it is almost unreadable. Begs the question how Stakely could have produced something so excellent and then fumbled it so badly. This never quite fumbles the ball, but it has kind of the same feel where there are these segments of totally engrossing, totally effective military action sci-fi writing, bogged down in this morass of, I guess, filler detail, filler character building, world building. All the secondary characters are not really that great. The main character is really good. The main character is this relatively elderly guy who just kind of gets thrust into this situation because he's following his conscience and decides to protect this woman who's looking for help. And he winds up having to enlist in this military. He's disgusted by killing, and then you get to see him become progressively desensitized and conditioned to life in the military and undergoing this moral panic over what he has to do. So if you like military sci-fi, if you like cyberpunk, I would say there's a lot of that. There's a lot of kind of body horror stuff, cybernetics, transhumanism. And if you like the game Halo, you'll like this book. It's not going to make my top 15 list, but it was time relatively well spent, and it's a smart enough book that does things mostly right, and it is memorable. So I have 192 books, genre books, not counting lit fic or nonfiction, that I have not read. So instead of following my nose and picking one myself, what I'm going to do this time is I downloaded an app that will pick one of these books at random. Whatever it picks, I have to read. I cannot DNF it. I have to finish it. And I'm going to try to read it in short order, like within a week. Here we go. You're seeing it as I'm seeing it. Protector. I have no recollection of what that is. Okay, here it is. Larry Niven's Protector. So I will be reading this next. I'm actually pretty pleased with this. I was looking at these Nivens on the bookshelf and kind of pining for them. So totally happy with that. Okay, see you for this.